Hi everyone, welcome back to This Book Belongs to Pam. This is Battle 1 of Sunrise on the Readathon. So I am participating in Katie Colson's Sunrise on the Readathon. I'm going to leave a link down below for the announcement video, which I think there's still time to join it once I post this. So I can't tell you to join my team because it's based on your birth date because it's the zodiac signs. But I wish you're Sagittarius. I really wish you are. So I actually already started reading for this readathon because today is is it the 4th of July? I think it's the 4th of July. I have finished reading Saints of Storm and Sorrow, but I'll still include me reading this, my thoughts and reactions after this introduction. And then I am now currently reading Sunrise on the Reaping. This is my first time reading this. I am ready to get my heart broken. And I want to read this too during this readathon because you get bonus points if you read any of the Hunger Games books. So yeah, this is going to be my second book. And then I was supposed to read Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez because I was going to do a live stream on it last Tuesday, but I have not been feeling well, you guys. My iron has been pretty low. I'm still in the process of getting medication and stuff for that, so I haven't really had a lot of energy to do things. Like I feel lethargic the entire day, so I postponed that live stream because I don't know how I would be able to manage that. So I'm not sure if I'm still gonna be reading Yours Truly for Battle 1 because Battle 1 ends on, I believe, on Sunday. So not sure, maybe not. So we need to find a different book to read to replace that. But I think I'm gonna think of that after I finish reading Sunrise on the Reaping, because I also have another video that I'm working on for Instagram, which is reading Filipino comics. So I'm gonna be focusing on that today as well because I have to post that today because there's the Philippine International Comic Festival during the weekend and I want to post that in support of the festival. I am so happy that you're here. I am so excited to be part of this readathon. Katie did such an amazing job, and go Team Sagittarius District 11. I think we're gonna kill it. But before that, here's me reading Saints of Storm and Sorrow by Gabrielle Buba. Hi everyone, good morning. Well, it's technically the afternoon. It's 3:21 in the afternoon. Sorry for the changing light. I'm in front of my computer and I was just wanting to check something. But I am currently reading Saints of Storm and Sorrow by Gabrielle Buba. I'm reading this since I'm part of the street team for the second book, and obviously I want to be, familiar with the world before I go about like reading the next book and even sharing it on my socials. I am currently on page 320. I'm like 150 pages from finishing. Before I even go into like my thoughts, what is this book about? Saints of Storm and Sorrow is a fantasy which is heavily inspired by Filipino culture, Filipino heritage, and myths. This is following Maria Lunurin. She is a storm caller. Essentially, she can call the storm, like lightning, clouds, rain, and stuff like that. She did something in the very beginning of the book that essentially had her cast away to Aynila. Aynila is this area in Luzon, which is the northern part of the country, and it is by the bay across an island with a volcano called Hilaga. So this is inspired by real life Taal. In Aynila, she was kind of forced to go into a convent because she's actually half Codician, which is the Spanish in this book, and half Aynilan, I guess, Filipino in this book. And her father is actually going to be the archbishop, and she is trying to become a nun for the last 10 years. However, this is really not what she wants to be. She's just like biding her time until she can find a way to get out of this life, preferably with Catalina, who is her lover. So Catalina is another novice at the convent, and Catalina is also half Aynilan, half Codician. Catalina is this very complicated person in the sense that she is very devout. She has a lot of aspirations on the Codician side, but she also doesn't want to let go of her relationship with Lunurin. She has this very weird dichotomy that's like pulling her into two sides. Like, she wants to be with Lunurin, and she understands that Lunurin is very much in tune with her heritage, but she also believes that her calling is in, with God and everything. So she's very much torn, and she also doesn't know that Lunurin is actually a stormcaller. So stormcallers, all of the magical people, not just stormcallers, we have the stormcallers, fire tenders, and tide touch. All of them have this ability to call upon the power of certain gods, and this is just part of their heritage. They're essentially regarded as witches in this country, and there was a lot of like witch hunts happening in the past 10 years that essentially eradicated a lot of their population. And Kalilan doesn't know that Lunurin is a stormcaller, and quite possibly the last stormcaller. So that is like what Lunurin is trying to contend with, like hiding a portion of herself while still maintaining this relationship with Catalina. So it's all very complicated. So many things happened that eventually led to her being kicked out of the convent and into a marriage of convenience with Alan Dakila, who is the son of the Lakan. The Lakan is the head of the, I guess you would call them like the native Filipinos in this book. Like the Lakan is the head of the natives in this book, and he's the Lakan's son. So he's like has a certain level of prestige and nobility in this name. Lunurin and Alan actually know each other from 10 years ago. They were both aboard the same ship that Lunurin was in when she was being cast away to Aynila from Kalilan. And something happened in that ship, like tragedy struck and whatnot. And that is where Alon found out that he was tide touch. Basically, he has the power to control the tides. And this is also like a big secret because obviously they're witches in this world. So they have this special bond because, they know each other, has magic essentially, and they know that they're touched by their gods, but they have to keep it a secret. They both have strong ties to their heritage. And so begins this complicated sort of like love triangle kind of situation, which is very interesting and also very frustrating. But yeah, that is Saints of Storm and Sorrow. I am very much intrigued to see what happens towards the end. My initial thoughts are that it's definitely a slow starter, and it took me a while to really get into it. I picked it up so many times, but couldn't get past like the first 30 pages. Now, very intrigued, and I'm very curious to see how things are gonna play out because there's so much happening and there's so many subterfuge, so many scheming and plotting, and I really like that about my fantasy books. The only thing is there are some things about the writing style that is not like clicking with me. I find it quite hard to read in the sense that I'm not like being pulled by the words themselves. The plot is pulling me in, but the words themselves are not. The author also has this tendency to use dashes a lot, like compounded words. I really noticed that at the beginning. Like the author would use like dry dock, tide touch, mother of pearl light, gold lip, pearl top, acting a best. There's something that I feel like does not really need a hyphen or like a dash, but she hyphenates everything. And it is kind of like taking me out of the book, and it actually makes it quite confusing to read for me because there are some things that why is it hyphenated? It doesn't have to be like my brain is instead focusing on that instead of just reading the story for what it is. So yes, that is the only really bone that I have to pick with the writing. Otherwise, I am sat and ready to find out what the ending of this book is gonna be because I also have the second book and I can dive right into it if there's like a big cliffhanger in here. But yeah, that is the update on Saints of Storm and Sorrows. I plan to finish this hopefully today so I can move on to the next read for this video, which I don't actually at this point I haven't filmed the intro just because I'm like rushing and I don't want to film an intro with my crusty ass looking face. But yeah, this is the so excited. The next book is going to be very exciting because it is Sunrise on the Reaping. But Saints of Storm and Sorrows, that is my update. I will see you again once I'm probably finished with the book.
Staying safe at home. These days you've been left alone.
Just finished reading Saints of Storm and Sorrow by Gabriel Bupa, and I liked liked it. I really liked the ending. I liked how there was so much anger in it. While I still, up to the very end, was not a big fan of the writing style, I really enjoyed the characters and how their relationships progressed and how they were developed throughout the story. I wouldn't say that I particularly like Lunurin, but I can see like why she is the protagonist. She kind of gives me the same feeling as Rin from the Poppy War. Rin is a very unlikable character, but you kind of get why we're following her, why she is the driving force behind the Poppy War. The same goes for Lunurin in this book, and I really enjoyed it. I also read the author's note at the end, and where she got her inspiration for this, because this is very much based on pre-colonial Philippines. Pre-colonial Philippines have always intrigued me, and I love that we now have literature that explores it in a fun way, in a way that makes you feel curious. Now I'm a lot more curious about the Catalonan or the Babaylan, which are the inspirations for the Tide Touched and the Storm Callers and the Fire Tenders in this book. So yeah, I really liked it for that aspect. I think I'm going to be giving this one 3.75, mostly because I really had a hard time in the beginning with the writing style, and still towards the very end, it really wasn't my favorite, and I find myself losing focus because of the writing style, but the story itself and the themes and the message really spoke to me, and I felt quite a bit of emotion while reading this book because I was so enraged by a lot of the characters. One specific character, which name starts with a C. If you've read this book, you know who I'm talking about, and I don't want to spoil it, but I was so mad at this character, and I was blowing up my Storygraph reading journal by saying, oh, blah, 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 this character is so annoying, blah, 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 because I was just so mad at this character. I'm trying to not spoil it. But yeah, that is Saints of Storm and Sorrows. I'm now going to be logging the pages that I read. I can log a total of 443 pages because I read the first 20 pages in June. But that's still quite a lot. And then I'm going to move on to my next book, which is Sunrise on the Reaping. I'm just here to close off the first vlog for Sunrise on the Readathon. I didn't do a great job of updating you in between books because I was away. I was out of town with my partner's family to celebrate the birthday. But yeah, I did want to still recap everything that I read. So the first book that I read and finished is Saints of Storm and Sorrow by Gabrielle Buba. So this is a fantasy book and I quite enjoyed it. I think I mentioned that I really liked the plot, the story of it, and the world building, but I'm not as big of a fan as the writing style. It was quite hard for me to get into. I'm definitely going to be continuing on to the second book in the series because I'm also part of the street team for that book. So I'm going to be reading that I think next week or the week after that. That is Saints of Storm and Sorrow. And then I read a bunch of comic. I was gifted these comics by the publisher Regan Press. I did a reel to promote them for the Philippine International Comics Festival, which happened over the weekend. Unfortunately, I could not attend that because, as I mentioned, I was out of town for a birthday party, but I did read the comics. So the first couple of comics that I read was the Thank You and More Power comic. So this was written by Rex Dorado. The art is by Sampay. It's a speculative fiction work, quite dystopian with a psychedelic twist, because in this story, we are in the Philippines where it's very cyberpunk, lots of those neon lights and whatnot. But instead of like mech and tech being like, you know, the defining characteristic of the cyberpunk world, it's drugs that give you superpower. So it really reminds me of Psychopaths in a way, because we're following this group of employees that work for Mana Corporation, who produces the drugs that give you superpower, and they are kind of tasked with enforcing and making sure that the drugs aren't like being used in a bad way or in a way that basically tanks the bottom line of Mana Corporation. So it kind of reminds me of the enforcers from Psychopaths. I read 2 issues of that. It is a full color comic, which I really love. And then I also read this one. This is Nightgate, which is a comic written and illustrated by Lucia Azul, which is an artist that I've recently discovered, but I've started to really like their work. So in Nightgate, we are following this family in the midst of a civil war. So it has this end of the world feel. One day they find this portal to a very mysterious place. They're not sure if that's a good place or not, but they have no choice but to take refuge in it just to escape the civil war that they're in. So I read 2 issues of that and I really, really loved it. I love the blend between the story and the art. I feel like this is one of those comics that really pushes the boundaries when it comes to using the medium, the art, to convey a specific impact, a specific emotion. The illustrations are not just telling you what's happening, it's adding to the vibe, adding to the atmosphere, adding to the impact that the story wants to, you know, provide. And yeah, it's really well done. It's all in black and white, but that is used so masterfully. So as a designer, I'm really loving Nightgate. So yeah, that is 2 issues or 2 chapters of Nightgate. Another one that I read, which is, where is my Kindle? I read this on my Kindle. It's the new Ali Hazelwood, which is the Problematic Summer Romance. So this, I did not know was set in the same world. I didn't know that this was so intrinsically linked to Not in Love. Like the characters in Not in Love are here. The main characters in this book were mentioned in Not in Love. They're like the sister and the best friend. I did not know that, and that was such a nice surprise when I first read this, and I read that the last name of the character's brother is Kilgore, and I'm like, where have I read a book with Kilgore in it? And I love Not in Love. So this one was kind of like nostalgic in that way. Like I was already quite invested in the characters because I know of them. But I'm not sure that I love this one. Maybe I haven't like fully wrapped around my ratings on this book yet. I enjoyed it. Like it was more of a guilty pleasure read for the most part. It really gave me that yearning with a capital Y that I love in books. And while I'm not like the biggest fan of the things that happen in the book, I still can find enjoyment in all of the yearning and a little bit of like a hurt comfort. From an enjoyment factor, this rates really highly for me. So it's probably like gonna average out to like a middle of the road type of book. But yeah, that is Problematic Summer Romance. I wouldn't say it's her best work, but it was quite fun to read. And then the last book that I read is Lunatics, which this is a one-shot comic by Russell Molina and illustrated by Ace Enriquez. So it's about this ragtag group of people who is embarking on a heist to steal Spolarium, painted by One Luna, which is kind of like a shock because Polarium is a big painting. It's in the museum that it's the entire wall. I'm gonna put like a picture of Polarium just for context of how big this painting is. So yeah, they're gonna try and steal that, which is like how. Unfortunately, this was quite a disappointment for me. I had really high hopes for this. I love high stories. I love high stories involving art. And this is just gonna follow in line with Portrait of a Thief with things that I was disappointed by that has those like themes in it. It was just, I don't know, maybe because of the format, it has sort of limitations in the length, and that really affected like the storytelling for me. And there were just some things here that were just left in the air. Like there were so many stuff that was set up in the beginning with the father, and then it just happened. I could have really liked this one. I think this could have been a really good story, but unfortunately it just really missed the mark for me, which is really sad. That is Lunatics. I just went in to the replay of the canon call. Was that canon call? Canon call, I think, which is gonna announce like who of our tributes have been eliminated. And oh no, only one of our tributes survived, just Clarabelle. Everyone else has been eliminated, which is so sad. But at the same time, it's a perk, in a sense, because now all of our points go to Clarabelle and they don't get divided. But yeah, that was just so sad. But yeah, Team Clarabelle, essentially. I have already built up my TBR for this next week, this battle 2. I also had to double it up with the Summerween prompts, and I think I found like a good stack that I could like actually read and finish. So fingers crossed that battle 2, we're not gonna get eliminated. But yeah, that is Sunrise on the Readathon, battle 1. I will see you in the next video.